In the 1920s, there was a job every young woman in town wanted: clean, respectable. It paid more than almost anything else available to working-class women at the time. The job was painting watch dials and clock faces with a special glow in the dark paint so people could read the time at night. The paint contained a newly discovered, fascinating element called radium. Radium was the celebrity element of its time. Scientists barely understood it. The public thought it was practically magic. It was even sold in tonics, in face creams, in toothpaste, marketed as a literal health booster. So when these young women were hired to paint with it all day, nobody thought twice. In fact, many of them thought they were lucky. Here's how the job worked. To paint the tiny, precise numbers on a watch face, the brush needed an extremely fine point. The company taught the women a technique to keep that point sharp. Put the brush tip between your lips, twirl it, dip it in radium paint. Repeat. Hundreds of times a day. Lip, dip, paint, lip, dip, paint. Over and over, thousands of times across a single shift. Some of the women thought it was fun. The radium dust would settle on their skin, their hair, their clothes. When they walked home at night, they glowed faintly in the dark. Some of them even painted their nails or teeth with it as a party trick, just to watch themselves shine in a dark room. They had absolutely no idea they were ingesting radioactive material directly into their bodies, multiple times a minute for years. Radium behaves a lot like calcium once it enters the body, so instead of passing through harmlessly like the company assured them, it settled directly into their bones, and it stayed there, radiating, slowly destroying tissue from the inside. The first signs were small, toothaches that wouldn't go away, then loose teeth, then something far worse. Their jaws began to physically deteriorate. Doctors who pulled an infected tooth would sometimes find the jawbone itself crumbling apart in their hands. One of the earliest victims, a woman named Molly Maggia, went from a simple toothache to losing her entire lower jaw within months. When doctors removed it, it came away in pieces. She eventually died from a massive hemorrhage in her mouth and throat. The official cause of death listed at the time, to protect the company, was syphilis. As more women fell sick, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Anemia, spontaneous bone fractures, tumors. By 1924, just a few years after the work began, dozens of women at one factory alone were seriously ill, and a dozen had already died. The company's response was not to stop the work, it was to deny everything. They paid their own doctors and scientists to publish studies claiming there was no connection between radium and the women's illnesses. Some of those examinations were later revealed to be deliberately staged, performed by people without real medical licenses, just to produce a paper trail of denial. Meanwhile, the company's own chemists and executives, who worked with radium in safer, more controlled lab conditions, wore protective lead aprons and used tongs to handle the material. They knew exactly how dangerous it was. They simply never told the women on the factory floor. A small group of surviving dial painters, led by a woman named Grace Fryer, decided they weren't going to die quietly. In 1927, 5 of them filed a lawsuit against the company. Newspapers nicknamed them the Society of the Living Dead, because doctors believed every single one of them only had months left to live. The company tried to stall. They requested delay after delay in court, openly hoping the women would simply die before the case could be decided, ending the lawsuit along with them. The women testified anyway, some of them unable to lift their own arms to be sworn in. Their case became front-page news around the world. Eventually, just before trial, the company settled, paying for medical care and a small compensation. Most of the original 5 were dead within a few years of the settlement. A second group of women in Illinois, working for a different company, faced almost the exact same nightmare a few years later. One of them, Catherine Donahue, was so weak by the time of her hearing that she had to testify from a chair, unable to stand. She died just months after finally winning her case in 1938. She was 35 years old. These lawsuits changed everything. They became one of the first major cases in American history, where a corporation was legally forced to take responsibility for poisoning its own employees. The cases helped create modern occupational disease law and workplace safety standards that still protect workers today. Radium paint stayed in some products for decades after, but its use in watch dials was eventually phased out entirely by the 1970s. The Radium Girls didn't just glow in the dark, they lit the way toward laws that protect workers from exactly the kind of corporate denial that killed them. Did you know about the Radium Girls before this video? Let me know in the comments.